Hello, Jackie Johnstone. I am really excited that you're here today to talk to us about human design, specifically for entrepreneurs, people like me who have their own businesses. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's so my pleasure to be here.
You have offered to do a mini live consult with me today on my human design and how it relates to my business, which I'm really intrigued and super excited about. But before we dive into all that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So I'm Jackie, as you said. I am a Canadian transplanted to France, and I started my business. Goodness, it's been just a bit over 6 years now, and I did not start in human design. And I think we can talk a little bit about how we know each other and my background in a second. But what I'm doing now is helping business owners stop overthinking their business, stop trying to feel like they have to follow like this one size fits all strategy that isn't working, that it's like a pushing a boulder uphill in your business, and start seeing your own talents, your own energy, your own light, and running your business in a way that's like intuitive, that has flow, that has ease. And your human design chart can unlock all of that for you.
Oh
So it's
man.
super
I
exciting.
know, I love it. I've only just, in recent months started getting into human design and I'm loving it already. I'm so happy that our paths have actually crossed again because we, of course, met through Marie Forleo's B School in 2013. We're both 2013, class of 2013.
Yeah.
And I've been, following you all along and everything that you've been doing. You've become a real expert in your field. You were moving it, you were to social media, you're the go-to, no nonsense person. I always just thought I always sent people over to you if they wanted to know anything about social media. Here comes my cat. And I was really surprised when a few months ago I was flipping through Instagram and following somebody on human design, and I saw that the post was liked and commented on by Jackie Johnstone. And I was like, hang on, Jackie Johnstone? Like, she's into this woo-woo stuff too? And I was just super intrigued. And of course, I sent you a direct message, and that started this whole
Yes.
conversation about human design, how we are both like the same type, and we have a lot of
Yeah, we have a
similarities
lot in common in our
in our
chart. Yeah.
chart. Yeah. So how did you transition into human design?
That is such a great question. And us reconnecting around this was like just exactly how the universe works, like everything was the right time in the right place. So yeah, it's completely hilarious to me that this is where my business has gone now, because I have a degree in science. I was a meteorologist. My husband is a cold atom physicist. I'm like the most left-brained, like concrete person. And that's kind of how I used to run my business, right? Like I was very strategic, and I was, doing very practical social media, webinar marketing strategies for people, because yeah, that was my background. When we moved to France, I didn't know what to do. I spent 6 months being unemployed and feeling like I had no idea how to use the skills here. Now that we moved for my husband's work, and that's when I found B School and Marie. And B School was like the point at which I was like, oh, I could really do this. Like I could actually start my own thing. And the community, like meeting you and meeting so many other people in B School, is what got my business up and running. Like I would not have a business today without B School, like absolutely 100%.
Same.
I had my website up by the end of those like 8 weeks, and I don't think I would ever have done it without it. So that was like a turning point, and I had never really considered that I could run a business. It was not in my like scope of things that I thought that I would be doing. People around me weren't running their own businesses back then. The online entrepreneur thing was like more under the surface, or at least it wasn't in my radar. And so it was super eye-opening, and something just felt right about it. And I remember like I'd been unemployed for 6 months. We moved transatlantically. I did not have the money to invest in B School, right? But something inside me was like, this is your next step. This is what you need to do. And now I know that's my sacral, right? That's my which we'll talk about in a second. But like my intuition was saying, this is it. You need to make it happen. And so I did. And honestly, now that I'm like, you know, we all can see these things in hindsight, right? When I look back, I'm like, oh, of course that happened. Of course that was what the next step was. Like, I could never have been happy, you know, working for someone else. There's so much in my chart and yours, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but like individuality and like needing to like do our own thing and like blaze some sort of trail, right? And so I just took the steps that I had to take in the moment, and that was, okay, I have a degree in journalism and communications experience and social media experience, and social media in 2013 was like newer. So that's where I went, and that's how I started to build my business. And then it was after I had my first son, so he's about to turn 4. And my business was like really like I had surpassed my corporate income. Everything, I was working like probably way more than I should have been. But then I had my first son, and he arrived 2 months early. So we were in the NICU for a month, and all of a sudden my business like ground to a halt because it was like,
I can remember that.
Plan, right?
I can remember that because I was following you then, and I remember the newsletter coming out. Oh, I'm going to take my baby's due soon, and then suddenly it was like nothing. Everything dried up, and I was like, whoa, what happened to Jackie?
Yeah, it was, a huge lesson in like how much there is we can't control. And I think the universe sent me that to be like, just you had all these plans. Like I had the strategy, I had the 20 steps planned of like what I was going to do with those last 2 months and how I was going to like evergreen this and that and the next thing. And none of it happened. And that was exactly how it was meant to happen, clearly. And then after my first son, I took about a year off. And when I started to get back to business, in my business, I never had the same passion for it. I didn't feel the same way creatively about it that I did before I had him. And I know that you have mothers watching this, you guys can relate, right? Sometimes it just like, we just feel like a different person, even after your first kid or your second kid or your third kid, right? It's just like something changes. And I spent a long time in that period after he was born, basically kind of doing the maintenance mode in my business because I was like, something's not right. I feel stuck. Like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Like, I don't feel the same drive for this that I felt before. Like, but I'm sure that I'm supposed to be running my own business and I don't want to get a job. And like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Right. Yeah. And just sort of like going along until, we got pregnant again. I had my second son who's 18 months old now. And that was in March of last year that he was born. And in 2018. And after he was born, I didn't feel the same as I did after my first, but I had all of a sudden, it's like my eyes opened to the fact that there was more out there and underneath than I was aware of before. And it's really funny because my second is a reflector. And I will talk about what human design is in a minute, but reflectors are super rare. It's 1% of the population. And they're very open and they're really here to kind of be a barometer for your family.
I've never met a reflector yet. I don't know any reflectors in my life, and you have a reflector child.
Yeah, I mean, he's young, so he doesn't talk yet, but his energy is really different than most people's. And so, again, it's like the universe sent me exactly what I needed in the moment, right? To like have my eyes opened. And then, like most people, human design crosses your path when you're exactly ready for it, right? Like there is no coincidences that you're here watching this right now today. Yeah. If this is the first time you're hearing about human design, like I am getting like goosebumps emotional about this because this has so been my experience and my clients' experience that like it comes into your consciousness right at the moment that you're meant to be hearing about it. So he was born, and just a few months after, when I was starting to come out of the newborn haze, human design came into my life. And I was like, what the F is this? Like truly, I could not have been more skeptical. Like coming from my like left brain scientific place, like, what is this? This sounds like a bunch of like crap. Like, I don't like, how can this be real? But again, my sacral was like, you need to go over here. You need to check this out. You need to pay attention. And so I was open enough to follow the curiosity and followed it into a business coaching program that was based on human design. And again, I had no idea what I was doing in there. I told the coach that. I was like, I don't know why I'm here. Like, honestly, I'm super skeptical. And she was like, okay, well, you're 1-3, and that's the same profile as Kelly, which we'll talk about in a second. If you don't know what that means, don't worry. But she's like, you need to do the research. Like, you need to have a strong foundation, and then you need to experiment with it. So here's a bunch of books you can go read and come back, and then we're going to like do some experimenting. And that's exactly what I did. The more books I read, the farther down the rabbit hole I went, the more I was like, this is fascinating. But what really flipped the switch for me was that you can start to experiment with your human design decision-making strategy, which we'll talk about in 1 second, right away. Like the minute you understand what that is, you can start to live your life following your decision-making strategy. And that is making intuitive decisions the way that you are meant to do it. And so for a manifesting generator with sacral authority, like myself, like Kelly, it's to wait to respond to something. So something comes from outside of you and then you feel it in your gut. Like, yes, I bubbly, like I want to lean in, I want to do this, or this feels really constricting, feels really hard, heavy. I don't want to do this. And if it's not like that full body hell yes, then it's not for you right now. And I got to just start experimenting with that before you even understand any more of the levels of your human design onion, because there's like a billion layers. You can start to play with that. And I was doing my N=1 experiment, like the good scientist. And it was crazy because it just started to change things in my life and in my business. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So, okay, I'm going to keep going with this. I'm going to keep experimenting. And the way I kind of see it now, it's like, I just see that usually 1 or 2 stones down the path, and I feel the and I take the step, and then the next one shows up, and then I feel the and then I take the next one. And suddenly in February of this past year, the next stone was, you're doing this in your business now. Like I had been talking about it with some mastermind friends. I've been talking about it with some like business friends, and we've been sort of playing with it in their designs. And they were like, wow, this is really amazing. Like they were having the same reaction that I had had. And that's when I was like, oh, this changes everything. Like I can't go back now. I can't go back to just teaching marketing strategy that's like the same for everyone. I can't go back to just being like, this is how you're supposed to run your Facebook ads. Because the whole thing when I was doing that you would notice is like, you'd have 2 different clients. You're the same person with the same knowledge, but they would get wildly different results. And yes, they have to do the work, but like assuming they both did the work, like why does that happen? And it's the energy behind it and whether or not it's in alignment. And human design is the map for that. Like I would always hear people say, oh, but just let it be easy. Like just do what's in alignment. Just like follow your intuition. And I was like, great, but like, how the fuck do I do that? And like human design gave my left brain the like map and being like, oh, the more I found out about my design, the more I was like, yeah, that's me. Like it resonated. I was able to experiment with it. And then suddenly this is where I was going with my business. And I have to tell you, since like diving in February, like my business doesn't look the same at all anymore. And it's been so easy. Like every step of the way has been so much easier than my business was for the 5 years previous.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. There's no more like, well, there's still, okay. As a manifesting generator, if you're feeling frustrated, it's the like red light, something's going wrong. And there's way less frustration now. So that means that like, this is like the path that I'm supposed to be traveling. And I can feel it deeply that like, even though it's scary sometimes, even though I still have fear, even though I still have the not self crap, which we'll talk about in a second, it allows me to really come back to like what I'm here to do, and to stop overthinking things and to just like, take that next step.
Oh man, it's the overthinking things that I get into, and it doesn't like, stress me out or anything, but it's just kind of this always going on. And when you're talking about this path of like feeling like something's not quite right, but not quite sure what to do about it, that's how I've been, is that I feel like I've been helping people with their productivity and their time management and living a well-balanced life, and helping mothers in specific. And my book is all about that and everything, and yet I feel like on my own personal project, me, is evolving at such speed, and I'm kind of like, whoa, how do I explain where I'm at now and try to get people to want to be where, on this path, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, with what I've been doing with everybody and helping them, and just having that kind of, where do I go next? And then for me, I think it was last February. So this, for me, was when human design came onto my radar for the first time. And I was immediately intrigued, immediately drawn in, looking for YouTube videos, printing out my chart, printing out all my family members' charts, diving into books and all of that. So yeah, I know that that's the 1-3 investigating model.
Yeah.
That I have to figure everything out. And so, well, we're not going to move into me just yet, because I think it's important that we just give anybody who, I think some people watching this will know something about human design, but let's just give like a really kind of brief history, or what is human design?
So from my point of view, I mean, you can Google it and get all kinds of explanations about what it's based on and all that kind of stuff. And I just want to say, from my point of view, like, logically, it makes absolutely no sense. Okay. This was downloaded by Ra Uru, I can't even say his name, in the 80s, in like a 5-day vision or something like this on Ibiza. It honestly sounds like he was really high, right? Like I'm being straight up legitimate. Like when I heard it, I was like, okay, come on. Right. But it's like, it's so complex when you see it. And like, honestly, the mathematical stuff that goes into creating your chart, like I don't think a person could even dream this up. Like there's no doubt in my mind now that like he was given this by something bigger, whether you want to call it the spirit or source or universe or God or whatever you want to call it. And they gave it to him, and they were like, here you go do something with it. And it was his job to like bring it. He was a manifestor. So it was his job to initiate that and bring it out to the world. And it's like kind of, I mean, the energy map, I don't like mine. My human design books are under my computer, but like the body graph, you can hold your body graph up. So the body graph is mine up. A map of the 9 energy centers in the body, right? And some of them align up with the chakras. There's 7 chakras, but there are 9 centers in the body. And it tells you what is your energy. So anything that's colored in your chart is your defined energy that you have access to consistently. And each center has a different theme. And we'll look at that in a second. And anywhere that we're undefined or white, that's where we take in other people's energy. And that's where a lot of our not self, which is what human design calls the monkey mind, or like the, crappy thinking that we have, comes in to try and keep us from listening to our decision-making strategy, right? Because our mind has a lot of opinions. Yeah. And so the way the channels, the way that everything joins up, it all tells us how our energy works. What is us? What is truly us? Like your human design chart is like a Myers-Briggs on steroids, this is the chart you were born with. It's based on the day, time, minute that you were born. And so there's no changing it. As you evolve as a person, your personality tests and how you answer questions can change. And if you overthink them, they can change. Your human design chart is the way you were when you were born. It's your real true self when you take away all the layers of like what society, what your family, what your partner, what your friends, what everyone thinks you are or has told you need to be. And there's a lot of information in the chart, and it's unbelievable. I cannot explain to you how it works. Like I am now 2 semesters into 5-semester training program from BG5, which is the business and career arm of the International Human Design School, which is Ra's like organization. He's no longer with us. He passed in 2000 something, but his like foundation lives on, and they train people, and they have a business arm. So I'm like halfway through the training, and I still can't tell you how this stuff all works. It's that complex. Like there's so many layers. Yeah. But we're here today to talk about some top level stuff that can get you started with your human design experiment, because the gold is in just even getting started with your decision making strategy.
Great. Good. Yeah, I've already been experimenting with, as a manifesting generator, my strategy is to wait to respond. And I am an ideas person. I get a million ideas all the time. And I'm like, whoa, jumping on things all the time.
Yeah. But that's your defined mind too. I'll pull your chart up in a second.
Okay.
So before we go into that, I just want to give like a super brief like overview. Okay. So there are 5 different types in human design, and none of the 5 types, they all have their own strategies. So their own way that they're meant to be like expressing their energy and making decisions, but none of them are meant to make decisions from their mind. And that's the thing that all humans at this point in our evolution kind of do, right? Society told us, like, well, make pro-con lists, like figure out, is this the best strategic, logical thing to do? Like ask for advice, like all that stuff. But that's all trying to make mental decisions. And the problem with that is that our minds are super smart and really can like look at things from all different points of view, but they actually cannot handle all the variables. It's like a computer program. The analogy that really helped me is that there's like, you know, computer scientists and engineers have tried to develop like a robot that would cross like a busy, let's say like a lobby of a train station at rush hour. And the robot can't do it. Like it has machine learning or whatever, but people move so unpredictably and quickly, and like the robot shuts down. It's like, whoa, there's too many inputs here. Like I can't do this. Like the computer system can't handle it. And humans, we do it because we learn and we have this body consciousness. We don't even think about it. You slow down, you stop, you let someone go by, you speed up. Like we all manage to not hit each other, right? Yeah. But we're not thinking about that consciously. It's just happening. Yeah. And that's because our body, our subconscious, our connection with source, whatever you want to call it, is so much wiser than our mind. Like it's able to understand so much more. And so if we can make decisions from our body that allow us to take in that subconscious wisdom, it's going to be so much more aligned and correct for us than what our minds can ever do. So all 5 types need to not make decisions from their mind, because everyone here knows if you make decisions from your mind, you can mull that over till you die, right? You're like, I should have done it this way. What if I had tried this 2 other things? Maybe that this wouldn't happen. Like it's no fun at all. Whereas I can tell you, if you start to make decisions intuitively following your decision-making strategy, sometimes it's hard, but then it's like peace. You're like, oh yeah, I feel like this is really feel it in my body that this was the right decision, and I'm good. And then you can move on and like think about how much more you can get accomplished, right? Yeah. So the 2 main types in human design are generators and manifesting generators. And 70% of the world is a type of generator, and it's about a 50-50 split. And it's good that 70% of the world is generators, because generators are the builders of the world. Like we have this sacral energy, the red square in the chart, which we'll come to in a second. And it's like a go energy resource that renews each day. Like we use all our energy all day. We work, we go to sleep, we sleep well, we wake up, we have energy again. And so we have this energy to like do. And so most of the world functions like that. There are tons of variations between generators, manifesting generators, and all the different makeup in your chart, but those are the main types. And then the next, so that's 70% of the world. Then about 20% of the world are projectors, and projectors are the advisors. So you're here to be wise and to guide, especially those of us with sacral energy. So the generators and the manifesting generators, because you, projector, you see things for us that we can't see for ourselves. You probably have had this experience where you're talking to someone and they're telling their situation, and you're like, oh, I know what they need to do, right? But you can't just tell them, right? Your strategy is to wait to be recognized and invited, because if you've done it, if you just speak up and tell them what they should do, they can't hear it. They probably are like, who is this know-it-all? And then you feel bitter because you're like, but I see what you need to do, right? So projectors have their strategy, right? Which is, there's 5 other subtypes in the decision-making strategy, but you need to wait to be recognized and invited. And then 9% of the world are manifestors. And especially those of us who are manifesting generators, we like to think we're manifestors, but we're not. And manifestors are the only ones that are here to actually have the idea and go and do it. So they're here to initiate. They're here to get things started. They're kind of like the bowling ball that rolls down and like knocks all the pins over, and like the pins get to then react. Because generators and manifesting generators are over here waiting to respond, because our sacral only happens in response to something. Projectors are waiting to be invited or recognized. And then manifestors are here to like get things started. And you have a lot of power as a manifestor. But your strategy is to tell people what you're doing, because you make the rest of us nervous when you just sort of do your thing without telling us what's going on. And it's hard for you to tell us, because you don't want someone to tell you can't, right? And I know that. So that's part of your strategy. And then so that's 9%. And then we've got almost the whole world. And those last 1% are the reflectors. And reflectors are like the evaluators. They're so open. in their charts, that they're taking in energy from everyone. And so they are the ultimate mirrors. They let us see ourselves, and they're at their best kind of being a temperature taker for a community, for a business, for a family, for their kind of people that they're around, because they help us see ourselves better. And they're just like, at least with my little reflector at home, like he's just a beacon of kind of joy. He will bring everybody else up. Of course, he's not conditioned yet. He's not in that place where he's conditioned. So it's really, it's a gift. If you're a reflector, you probably feel really different than most people, but you have something very special to contribute to the world. So those are the 5 kind of main types, and we're all here to play a role. One of my human design teachers likes to say, well, if all the types were to build a town, manifestors would be the ones that said, oh, it goes here. Projectors would come in and draw the blueprints, be like, this is how the town should be built. And then the manifesting generators and generators, the builders, would come in and actually build it. Now, generators would go and build foundation, walls, windows, and slowly their whole street of houses would be up. The manifesting generators would be over there going foundation, walls, doors, windows. Oh, I better go back, and I forgot to put that on there. And oh, there's my roof. Okay, next house. And like as fast as they can, because we're all about efficiency, but sometimes we skip steps. And that's okay, because everyone's meant to do their thing in their own way. And then reflectors would come in and tell us how we did. And like, you know, what it looks like and where we can do better, and just like be evaluating all the things. So we need all the types, and we need all the types to be living as themselves. We need all the types to be living in their strengths, and not having projectors try and live like generators and exhaust themselves and get completely burned out, and not have manifesting generators trying to be manifestors and trying to like initiate everything and just spend our whole lives in frustration, because hell yes, I have been there, right? And not have like reflectors feel like they don't even know who they are and what they're here to contribute in the world, because they are so special and they have to like be recognized for that. So if everyone live in their design, it would be amazing, and we would all
would be a harmonious place. Wow, thank you for giving us all that background. I've been diving into all that myself, so I was nodding along going, yeah, but I loved your analogies and everything. That's great.
Okay, so should we talk about you?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to try
helicopter passing right now.
I'm going to try and share my screen so we can look at your chart. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it says it's disabled. You have to give them permission.
I have to give you permission. Okay, let me see how I do that. How do I give you permission to share?
I don't know. If you want, you can pull up your chart and share your screen. That's fine too. It's totally.
I'm trying to think of how I would pull up my chart. I've got it here.
You don't have it saved on your
computer. I do. Let me just get it open here. Hang on.
Thank you for your patience with our technical problems. I totally surprised Kelly. I didn't tell her that I was going to need her to pull up her chart.
That's okay. You can talk about something else interesting while I find it.
I just, the reason that I'm like so passionate about this is that the more that I've done this work myself, and the more that I've done this work with clients, the easier it is for us all to like feel comfortable with who we are and how we're supposed to do business, because there's so much information out there about like, this is the right strategy, or this is the right way to do, you know, a funnel, or this is the right way to do a webinar, or this is how you should market. And we need tools. You need tools. Okay. Like I wouldn't be able to run my business intuitively without having B-School, without having the other business and sales training that I've had. You need tools to choose from, but you need to trust yourself when it comes to selecting and applying the tools.
I love that. This has been something that's just come up in my life over the past week, where I've just come to the realization that, you know, you can't teach somebody a 5-step method for something that's going to work for everybody. Just because it's worked for me doesn't mean that it's going to work that way for everybody. So that's I found my chart now.
Yay! And also, I just want to, what's really helped me is, like, I know you were saying, Kelly, you're feeling like, in that place where you're like, something needs to change and I'm not exactly sure what yet. And you don't need to know the how. That's the brilliance of the human design chart. and your decision-making strategy. It's like you just follow your decision-making strategy, which for you, so now with your chart, which is awesome. So this red square in the center there that you can see colored in is the sacral that I was talking about, the energy resource. And let me just close that so that here we go. And so like that is where your comes from. That's where your energy comes from, but that's where your decision-making strategy comes from.
Your audio just changed a little bit just now. I'm not sure what happened, but it suddenly just sounds a little bit different. I can still hear you, but I don't know whether there was something that just happened, but I can still hear you.
Is it okay? Did it go back? Was my internet just being weird maybe?
Yeah, I think it's okay now.
Okay. It's possible I closed some background windows because I felt like my computer was being slow. So I don't know what that's about. But if you can hear me, we could keep going. So Kelly's decision-making strategy as a manifesting generator and any generators and manifesting generators, it starts with the sacral response. So that's and it happens in response, okay? And that is hard for generators and manifesting generators sometimes to understand, especially I found as a manifesting generator, that's hard because I have an idea and I want to go and do it right away, right? Has that been your experience?
Oh,
Kelly?
yeah.
Yeah. Because we're super efficient, okay? We want to work, whether you're a generator or manifesting generator, you want to work, you want to accomplish things. And we love what we do, which is great because the sacral is only an infinite energy resource if we're doing what lights us up, okay? Generators can burn out just as much as projectors or manifestors or reflectors if they're doing work that frustrates the crap out of them and you're not doing what you love, right? Which is the important part of get to that. But even when we're doing what we love, if we're just initiating on ideas, we're going to hit frustration because that's not how we're meant to operate. We can't know what's correct for us. Like truly the subconscious body knowing that I was talking about, you can't access that unless it's in response. So it's like someone comes to you and says, hey, Kelly, do you want to come and speak at my retreat? You're going to be able to hear the or the But if you just have this idea like, oh, I should run a retreat, your sacral has nothing to work off of. It's just an idea. It might be correct. It might be not correct. It might be for later. It might be for now. You don't know. And especially Kelly has both the yellow triangle and the green triangle. Those are the mind, the head, inspiration center, and the ajna, which is the conceptualization. Together, those make the mind. You have those defined. So you're here to have this, you're basically constantly tapped into inspiration. When you're alone, you're probably just like having all these ideas all the time and like, you know, wanting to like, oh yeah, that, what about this? What about that? What about this? Right? And that's awesome. You're here to provide that to the world too, to have that energy and provide that inspiration for other people. But figuring out what's correct for you at this right time doesn't come from your mind. So the way that I have forced myself to pause as a manifesting generator is I have the idea and I have an open mind. So if you have those triangles white in your chart, you take that in from people like Kelly. So when you're in her aura or when you're out around other people in a coffee shop or on the street or whatever, you're taking in other people's ideas and inspiration. And in order to know what's yours and what's not yours, you have to wait for something to respond to. So I take the ideas and I put them on what I call my shelf, but it's just a memo on my phone. And I write all the things there. And because I don't want to forget, I'm like, kind of feel like, oh, even though, you know, the right ideas probably will come back around, that's how my brain.
I use Trello for that. I've actually got like, you know, a whole like parking lot of ideas in Trello. And it is just my ideas. It's crazy like how many you can scroll and it's just so many ideas, but it feels good just to get it out, park it somewhere and just know that it's there. Mm-hmm. But I'm learning not to act on all of those until like another signal comes up, a little signpost comes up, and then I'll go, oh, I had that idea. That's been happening to me recently where somebody in my Project We membership group will go, oh, I really wish you'd create a journal. I don't know how to journal and I really want to get started. And I go, that's on my ideas board. And then I bump it over and I move it more into like I'm going to action that, you know, or I put the feelers out and I ask my sacral, is that something I should do? And it's like, yeah, you've been wanting to do that for
yeah, then you feel the then it's time. Yeah. And that means that you're going to get satisfaction from that project. It's going to flow easier. It's not going to feel like resistance and frustration because it was the right time for it. So that's exactly what I do with my shelf. And I wait for the universe to send me something. One of my coaches calls it the green light, but it's like something from outside of you that you can and sometimes something might come off the idea board and you'll be like, actually, I don't have the energy for that right now. It's an or it's it's not a full body yes, in which case you can leave it there or take it off. But like, at least then you know, right? Mm-hmm. That it's like, it's come off the shelf in some way. Yeah. And a great example of this kind of things with having the right timing that you can predict with your mind. Like I had this feeling in around November of last year. I was about 2 months into like really living my design. And I had this idea, I should share this with this mentor that I work with, who I worked with for a long time. And I was like, I feel like she'd be really into this. But that was just an idea. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it on my shelf because I was practicing. I'm going to put it on my shelf, right? And it actually sat on my shelf until like February. Something completely unrelated about a launch that we had just done came up, and she asked me a question, and it made me think. It wasn't anything to do with human design, but made me think again about human design. And then I was like, And I said to her, actually, I'd really love to look at this question through the lens of your human design if you're open to it. And she was like, oh yeah, sure, let's do that. And so we started to dive in, and that was one of the levers that really fully pivoted my business, was watching that happen and the results that she got. Mm-hmm. And when I look back on it, I'm like, if I had approached her in November and said, hey, like, are you open to talking about your human design? She might have said yes, but she was also gearing up for a launch. I didn't have all the training that I'd had by February or the experience that I had, so I probably wouldn't have been able to communicate well yet what I really wanted to communicate and to help her in the way that I was able to help her in February. Yep. So like the timing was the way it was supposed to be.
I love that.
Because the universe helped me do that, right? As opposed to initiating and it maybe going nowhere or being frustrated or whatever. The timing was like right. And so that's what I do with my shelf. And so as a manifesting generator with sacral authority like yourself, putting it in the idea thing in Trello is perfect. And then waiting for something outside of you. And it doesn't even have to be a direct, like somebody saying, hey, could you make a journal? It could be that you log into Facebook and see a post from somebody about frustration about journaling. And again, that's just a little green light that makes you think of the idea. Yep. And then if you feel you can go ahead. And so it's so awesome when you start to do it, because you're like, now the pressure of having to figure this all out in my head is completely gone. Like I get to let the universe help me. I get to let my subconscious help me, your higher self, whatever you want to call it. And everything works so much better like that.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so if I was a client and I was seeing you, I know you're going to do this in a mini version. So we're really going long on time here.
I told you we were going to have too much to talk about.
I know. Is that I'm just wondering, like, would I ask you a question I have about my business, and then you would be able to?
No, we can definitely do that. So normally when I do a session, a design decode session with someone, it depends how much they know about their design, where we start, but we would start with explaining your type, which is what we've just been talking about. Yep. So what is it to be a manifesting generator? To want to do work that lights you up, to want to be super efficient, to sometimes skip steps, and that's all part of the process, right? And so you can accept that, like, that's your energy and that's what you're here to do. And you're a pure manifesting generator. That's that channel, that red one that you've got from 20 down in the sacral all the way up to, 34 down up to the 20 in your throat. That's that big long one there. And that really is like the energy to be busy, doing something you love and multitasking if that feels good to you. Right? Because I have the same channel, and it was so freeing to hear that, because I'm like, I love multitasking, and I always get shit from people because it's like the society tells you, it's inefficient. You should single task. Like my husband's like, how can you possibly be watching TV and working on your computer right now and like looking at Facebook, or you know what I mean? Like how his brain is like, because he's a generator. He's very step by step. And I'm like, I don't know. It's just like I need it.
Yeah, so that's that channel that makes us kind of busy and and multitasking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like your nature, okay, as a manifesting generator, and you're here to really be to accomplish way more than you thought was possible. Like that's the express builder manifesting generator energy. Like we're here to be examples for the whole rest of the world of like what is really possible. I feel like the manifesting generator in me often. It feels like I'm bending time and space when I'm really in my flow. Like the amount of shit I can get done when I'm like very much in my flow, I'm like, whoa, that was an hour? Like I accomplished so much. right?
I'm exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's your nature, and then you can go with it. And then the second thing that we would talk about is what your decision-making strategy is. So you're a sacral authority, which means that in the moment, you're going to feel in response the or the Some people have emotional authority, some manifesting generators. That's the triangle on the right there that Kelly has white. That's the emotional solar plexus.
Oh, this one over here.
Yeah, that one. That's the emotional solar plexus. And so as a manifesting generator or generator, if you have that defined, it means you have an emotional wave, and you need to kind of feel your sacral, and then sleep on it and just see how it goes through. So if you were emotionally defined, we would talk about what the wave looks like and how to ride it and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, but I don't have that. Yeah.
So
okay.
you're sacral, which means when you're acting in response and you feel the or the you can go. Like, you don't need to second guess it. You don't need to let your mind get involved. You don't need to say, actually, I need to think about it. Mm-hmm. Like, if it's a hell yes in your body, it's a hell yes, and you can go.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what your decision-making strategy looks like. And then we would talk about the shelf and ideas and all that kind of stuff. And then we would talk a little bit about what your shadows look like. So the decision-making strategies are intuitive, body, subconscious, whatever, telling us this is the path, right? And then we feel the and that's when the mind is all like, but what about this? But what about that, right? Like, for you, your biggest shadow is going to be the undefined heart. That's the tiny little triangle there. Nope, to the right. Yeah. Yep. So that's your ego, willpower, heart center. And it's the energy for it's self-worth. So you probably hear things in your head like, well, I should just do that because then they'll think that I'm really, really great. Or if I do this, then they'll think I'm really valuable. I could do that because then, people will be like, wow, you're so amazing. Like, looking for appreciation outside of yourself, like not having internal sense of self-worth. And likely, I know you've done lots of personal development work, so you probably worked through lots of those stories, but that's how the shadow of the open heart can show up. Now,
okay.
The undefined centers, where we're white, where we're taking in this energy from other people, and the stories are showing up, is also where we have the possibility to have the most wisdom. So you can be really wise about what does it mean to have my internal self-worth. What are other people? You can probably sense who has good sense of ego and self-worth and who's overblown and who's like full of shit, because that you have this detector if you're living in that high expression of that center, and really getting like knowing that you have nothing to prove. Like, that's the high expression here. It's like, my worth is not based on how much money I make, what my accomplishments are. Like, I am not here to prove anything. I don't have to promise that. I don't have to accomplish this. I don't have to do any of that. And when we hear things to the contrary from our minds, that's just the not self, the monkey mind, telling us stories that are trying to keep us from following our decision-making strategy. So an example of this, this is in human design, they call it deconditioning, to like let go of that, to get out of letting our mind tell us those stories. And when I first started talking about human design, one of the big stories I had was like, all these people that were following me before are going to think that I've gone off the deep end, and they're not going to value me or like look up to me or whatever anymore, right? But that's all story in my open heart. It's not true, and even if it is, who cares? Like, this is the path, right? But like, letting that go and being able to follow the that was like, you need to go here, you need to change your business, you need to start talking about human design. I had to work through those stories, right? And you can self-coach, and you can journal, and you can work with a coach, and you can, there's lots of modalities to get through that. But what I love about human design is that it actually shows us exactly where those shadows are going to be. So the distraction of like thinking I have to prove myself is not real. It's not you. That's why they call it not self. Like, it's energy that you're taking in and conditioning that you've taken in from other people. And when I look back on my own life, I'm like, oh, I was a valedictorian. I had to have top grades in all my classes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was constantly taking in that from other people, like, oh, you're so amazing, you're so smart, you're really accomplished, you're really like all those things, right? And it's like, oh, this is just how I'm designed. This is the lessons I'm here to learn. This is my growth path. but that's going to be a shadow for you. So does that ring true for you?
Yeah, like you said, I think I've worked through so much of that. My personal growth path is just so strong that I feel like when I do have those niggly kind of, who am I to do this and what are people going to think and all of that. I mean, yeah, I go through my kind of weirdness about it, but then I come out the other side, and I say, well, that's just who I am.
Yeah. And so the next kind of shadows that will probably show up for you are in the undefined emotional center. So that solar plexus that we were talking about. When we're undefined emotionally, we're empathic, right? Like we can go into a room with somebody, and if they're feeling feelings, we feel their feelings. I'm also emotionally undefined, and it's hard because if we don't know that that's not ours, then all of a sudden we're like down the rabbit hole, right? It can be great if we go into a room and someone's feeling really happy because it's contagious. But if someone's like really down in the dumps and you go in, or they're really angry or they're really sad, then you just you feel that. And that doesn't feel great, right? That doesn't feel great. Mm-hmm. So learning, again, the wisdom here is to let those emotions pass through us because they're not ours and we're screens. Mm-hmm. That's the lesson. But the not self here can sound like, well, I don't want to do that because I'm going to upset somebody else. Because then I have to deal with that, right? Because they're going to be upset, then I'm going to feel upset. So I don't want to have that conversation. Not wanting to confront people, not wanting to have hard conversations. Mm-hmm. Even if your sacral's like, I need to break off this business relationship, or I need to let this client go. And the not self is all like, but then you'll have to have this really awkward conversation. Like that's how the shadow shows up. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that resonates.
Yeah, again, I mean, I hate to sound like, but I read, Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, years ago, and I've read just so much about this stuff that I feel like I've worked through. I put up an invisible shield around myself, and I protect myself from other people's energies and their moods and all of that. So I see it going on, and I just don't feel super affected by it. But I think that's because I use strategies. It doesn't just come to me. Like I use
pull out more aware that we are of like this stuff, the more that like we can shine that light on it. It's like I love that metaphor that Liz Gilbert uses in Big Magic, where she's like, hey, fear, you can come along for this ride, but you're not driving the car. And it's the same with the not self. It's like, I see you there, like my heart telling me that I need to prove myself, or my solar plexus being like, well, I don't want to upset people, or your open root being like, I better hurry because I need to get things done. I haven't got enough done today. I have to work before I can play. Like, you hear those, and then you're like, okay, cool, you're there, awesome.
Like, don't push it away, like honor it and say, I see you. I mean, I learned that in Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth years ago. Most of the book didn't make sense to me at the time, but there was one bit in there about your ego is like a sleeping serpent, and it's just sleeping inside, and then it kind of rises up to defend its position if somebody's saying something to you. And I see it now. I do it with my husband. If he suddenly seems like he's picking a fight with me, or he's saying something to me, I just recognize it as stirring and rising up, and I'm able to go, I see you, ego. You don't need to take the bait on this. And it's just helped me so much.
Yeah. So each of the white centers has shadows associated with that. So I won't go into all of them, but they have like the power that they'll have over you. The open heart is going to be the first one. The emotional stuff is going to be the second. And then the root, which we sort of talked about, but it has to do with like physical pressure of stress, really. Like, how do I handle stress? How do I handle like feeling like there's so much to do? Like I need to hurry up, like that sort of pressure. Because anytime, the truth of the matter is, as a sacral authority, well, really as in any of the types, anytime that there's a lot of mental stuff, like a lot of chatter happening, a lot of story happening when we're trying to make a decision, it's not our decision-making strategy, right? Like our decision-making strategy is in our body.
Yeah, and I heard that it's just really, it's not convoluted and messy and unsure. It's just very pure and sure and confident. Mm-hmm.
And yes, like I said, you have to work through that stuff in order to be able to be brave enough to follow your decision-making strategy. Yeah. But the yes or the no is clear. It's not up here. So the minute we're telling ourselves long stories about why we should or shouldn't do this or that, where like you can be like, oh wait, hold up there, this isn't actually my sacral at all, right? So so that's where I start. I don't do if you Google human design, you'll see that the way that it's traditionally been done, I think it's changing right now, but most people in the past have offered and start with a reading, like a human design reading. And it's like a full deconstruction of your chart. Though I've had two, they take like 2-3 hours. They go through like absolutely all the like channels in your chart, which are the strengths, and they go through the centers and all, like all of the things. And it's super interesting. I felt when I had it like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, that's so interesting. Oh yeah. But the problem that I was having from going from there to like actually living it is that like it was just too much information. Like I didn't know how to use it. And really the best place to start is with decision-making strategy. So you can start your N=1 experiment. So you can start seeing results, because that's going to make you want to go further anyway, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't, you've still got like a big part of the human design is to just follow your decision-making. And so that's where I like to start. Like, well, what's decision-making strategy and what are the biggest shadows? Yeah. Depending on your chart, usually there's some other things that would come into it. So for you, I know we've talked about this before, but I would mention that like most of your strengths are individual empowerment strengths. So you're here to empower yourself. You're here to empower other people. And to be an individual means to like forge your own path, right? Like you're here to like shake things up and be an example of what happens when you follow your truth and not the path that everyone else is following, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I needed to hear today, actually.
Yay!
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, you know, that way you get into action with your decision-making strategy, which I know you personally have already been using for some time. Mm-hmm. And so if we were to do an actual session, we would go a bit deeper. But it's like then we go to that place where you're using it, and then you can start to peel the onion layer by layer as it becomes relevant, you know? Yeah. When I'm struggling with something in my business and I feel like I need to figure it out, because that for me is like the red flag now, like I need to figure it out, is like, no, that's not how it works. I need to like tap into my decision-making strategy. I need to tap into my own energy. I often come back to my chart to see like what other little clues I can pull out and how can I like, you know, take action from alignment and get back like on the path. And there's still layers and layers under there that I haven't fully explored. But that doesn't mean you can't already start feeling more ease in your business. You can't already have more of that satisfaction, more of the flow, more of the success, and like so much less of the muck without even having to understand every number in the chart.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Should I come out of my chart now, or?
Sure. I mean, you said you had a question, so let's go ahead and like do that. Tell me.
Okay. So I've been wondering whether I am meant to be working with people one-on-one, or whether I'm meant to be doing what I kind of do now, which is just sharing my journey, sharing my experiences, and doing that. I do it via my membership because I feel like I can reach the most people and say it once and reach a lot of people that way, as opposed to my time being booked up one-on-one with a lot of people individually. And I'm just wondering if that is in my design.
What's making you feel pulled towards one-on-one now?
No, I don't know that I am. Oh, okay. I don't think I am being pulled towards one-on-one necessarily, except that business coaches and people like that say that, you know, you can be running this membership for this small amount of money per month, and you're going to have a lot of members, you know, a lot, or you can be taking some people more higher end and you can be working with them individually one-on-one, you know, people who want to go deeper with you.
Does it light you up to think about working with some people one-on-one, like the right people?
Yeah, the right people. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. So there's no, I don't think there's anything in our human design charts that say, oh, you aren't meant to work one-on-one or you are meant to work one-on-one, because it all goes back to decision-making strategy, like what's correct for you right now. Okay. So it's on the shelf then, and then let something come back to you. If somebody says, hey, Kelly, would you work one-on-one, or do you work one-on-one, or you see somebody else's offer that works one-on-one and you're kind of like, oh, I want to do that, then let that be the green light to check in. Or not, about doing that. Now you're a 1-3 profile. This comes from the conscious sun and the unconscious sun. And 1-3 is like, you're the same as me. It's experiential authority. Like you need to kind of have this deep foundation, and then you need to experiment. And you're really here to do it on yourself, which you've done a lot of already, right? And you have all this knowledge and all this personal growth work that you've been doing. And so if you are called to like, I want to work deeply with people one-on-one, whether that's in the realm of spirituality or wherever you're going on your own stuff, then like just try it, experiment with it, see if it lights you up, right? There's no like, your decision-making strategy is the ultimate test to whether or not the time is now. What I would say is that your conscious sun, this gate 59, is a gate of intimacy. So
gate 59, let me find that one.
This is right here at the very top, the very top number.
Uh,
on the right-hand side in the black numbers.
Oh, okay, yeah, 59, yeah.
The 59. So our conscious sun is kind of like the light that we're here to shine, the beacon that other people respond to. And gate 59 is intimacy. And a lot of people that have this in their chart as business owners like to have some level of intimacy with their clients. Yeah. And that doesn't mean it doesn't happen in a small group or that there aren't ways within a membership community to have that. But if you're feeling called to have a more intimate connection with your clients and you feel like one-on-one could be that thing, that you have the energy for that. You are here to do that. Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. And then it was a revelation for me when I found out I had the Freak to Genius channel, which is
that's the 4323.
4323.
That's the one from the green ajna down to your throat.
Yeah. It's that one. That was a relief when I found out that I have this, and when it was explained to me. You can say what it is, but I tell you that liberated me when I found that out. So you can go ahead and say what that is.
So that's been my experience over and over again with human design. Like it's around the multitasking. It's so liberating to just know that like that's our energy. And so the Freak of Genius is like these flash of insights. It's called in BG5, they call it the strength of efficiency, because it really is the like you have this breakthrough insight about how something can be done more efficiently, about this new idea. And it's a projected strength. So if you wait to be invited to share or recognized to share whatever that insight is that's come from your mind to speak it, people will be like, wow, that's a genius idea. That would be so much more efficient. Like, this is great. If you just share without being recognized or invited, people are like, who are you? I don't understand where this idea comes from. You are a freak. So that's why it's often called Freak of Genius. And it is, it's a very individual energy. It's also part of the individual circuitry that you have. And it's one of your strengths. It's a talent that you have that not everyone has. And so when you know that, you can lean on that. And when you're invited to share, you're going to feel really recognized for that.
Yeah, I've already been feeling that, and it's really good. Cool.
Amazing.
Is there anything else that you can see that stands out that you would want to tell me about?
I think I said this to you when we were speaking the other day, but as a 1-3, one of the things that I've noticed is in my marketing, because 1-3s are really focused on their own journey and themselves, like we're here to build our knowledge and then experiment with it on ourselves, that the more that we can share that, the more that we can share our journey, what's happening with us, the things that you're studying, the things that you use in your day-to-day life, the spiritual practices you have, like the more you can share that with your audience, the more people are going to respond to that. And so as I know you're kind of in this place of like, how do I bring these things together in my community? Like that's the place to start. Yeah. Just start with yourself, start sharing it from that place, and then watch the next stones and the ahas like pile up.
Well, it's amazing that when I did B school, and I didn't even have a business yet either when I started, I didn't know what my idea was, but one of the exercises in B school was you had to ask people, what do they think about you? You had to email all these people, and they reflected back to you what your strengths are, how they would describe you. And then you also had to look at, what do I do anyway without even being paid? Like, what's something that I do anyway? And I came up with, I am always sharing things I've done, sharing resources, sharing anything. And my friends who all replied to this said, oh my gosh, you are just like the treasure trove of resources. Or if I need to know this, if I need to know that, you follow through, you send me the link, you tell me, you show me that, share that blog post, or you share that. It could even be like the name of my plumber, or, my window cleaner, or something like that. But, I just openly share this stuff all the time. And I realized like I can make a business around that, like just sharing information. And that's what Project Me, it ended up being. It was me sharing what works for me in each
for you. Yeah, exactly.
8 key life areas, me never telling anybody else how they should do it. I never do that. I just share what works for me, and it resonates with a lot of people. And I also give them the tools, the worksheets, the fill in the blank things that let them to find their own answers. And that just came to me really naturally. Like it wasn't me scratching my head trying to figure out what I should be doing.
Exactly.
As soon as I was given the invitation to explore what I'm here to be doing. And so human design for me has been really reassuring. It's been really, really assuring to see that I'm on the right path, that I'm doing things, in a way that is in alignment with how I need to be doing things. And so it feels really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's been my experience as well. Yeah.
I'm going to stop sharing and come back here again.
I can't explain how it works or, how it can even exist. But the more you learn about yourself through it and you do your N=1 experiment, you get to decide for yourself. And what I've come to for myself is like, this is like very accurate, and it has been such a great tool. A tool for running my business, a tool for personal development, and just a tool for getting in touch with who I really am and what I'm here to do. And then bottom line is like, well, that's great. If it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and that's fine too.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Well, I don't know if there's anything more you want to add, or if we should wrap up. I definitely want you to tell people how they can find you.
Absolutely. So because my business kind of did a hard pivot just a few months ago, and I've been like racing to catch up because I've been doing tons of one-on-one sessions, my website hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah. Mine hasn't either. I've done a whole photo shoot months ago, and I'm ready with the new messaging, and it's not even out there yet because I'm just too busy with all the other stuff.
Yeah. So the best place to find me really talking about this stuff is on my Instagram, which is I'm at Jackie Johnstone, and I do design decode sessions with people, which are exactly what I was talking about when we were looking at Kelly's chart, which is like, what's your decision-making strategy and your type, and who really are you, and how are you meant to be making decisions, and what do the shadows look like that might be keeping you from that, so that you can get into action with your experiment. And then that session leads into 30 days of support inside my membership community, where there is like a group of just amazing business owners doing business intuitively, doing business differently by design, because watching other people do this and get results and ask questions is so powerful, because this is completely different than I think the majority of what we hear online in terms of like how you should be doing it, right?
Yeah, I know we follow these people, and it's like, here is how we should be launching, here is how we should be writing our Facebook ad copy, here, all that. And it's just so refreshing to hear that you can like find out what's right for you and be doing it according to your own strategy, rather than this way that everyone else is telling you that you should be doing it. So it's wonderful work that you're doing, and I'm happy. I'll be putting a link underneath this too, how people can find you. And yeah, I really encourage anybody who's curious to book in a call with you. And I love the fact that you've got that 30-day support membership too afterwards, because yeah, you're going to have more questions after you've had your reading. So
absolutely. That was one of the things that also felt like when I had a reading done for the first time, where I was like, okay, now what do I do with all this information? Now I'm here and I have questions. I'm like, I'm an investigator, right? That's the line one. So I was just getting more and more books and going deeper in the rabbit hole, but that's not right for everyone. And it would have been much more helpful to have someone to ask, and other people who were doing their thing along.
Absolutely. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, Jackie.
Thank
you so much for coming on and speaking to us about human design, and for giving me some extra insights on my own chart too. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, and I'm really excited to see where your evolution goes, where your next
So
goes.
am I. I'm
Where's your
super excited
goes?
about the evolution of my business and the next chapter of my life and everything that's coming up for me. So yeah, watch this space.
Yay!
Okay, bye, Jackie.
Bye.